Hi, I'm Dr. Adam Fraser and I'm going to talk about my new keynote, Grit. Now, how this came about is post-GFC, everyone was talking about resilience. Resilience was the big message. We did resilience training. Now, the thing about my research and my work is I always look at, well, what's the next thing? If everyone's talking about resilience, what do we do differently to get an advantage? And I started to come across this concept called grit. So resilience is, how do I cope? How do I get through the day? How do I claw my way through what we've got to do? But grit, and this is a new concept in psychology, is around not only how do I cope, but how do I excel? How do I stretch? How do I have tenacity? How do I execute? Because if you look at business, the biggest challenge in business is execution. That's it. 77% of all change efforts are never achieved. 63% of all strategy in business is never implemented. So we invest so much time and money and effort, but people just aren't following things through. And that's where this grit concept comes into. It's about tenacity, it's about execution. And I first saw this when I was at the Institute of Sport in Canberra. So when I was working down there, one of the things I noticed is the most talented athletes never made it. And the reason is that they had so much talent, they never had to work hard, they never had to push through. But it was the guys that had enough talent to be good, but had a work ethic attached to that and a mentality of grit. They were the ones that achieved the Olympic status. Yeah, that was the critical factor. And we've been studying success forever. There's so many elements to success. IQ, being charming, being creative, having emotional intelligence. But depending on the discipline, so for example, if you're a computer programmer sitting in a room on your own, charm is not a big thing for you, or emotional intelligence is not a big thing for you. Or if you're a playwright, people skills may not be you may not need them to be successful. Salespeople need charm, they need emotional intelligence. But if you look at all the research around achievement and success, the only thing that is applicable to all disciplines is grit. It's the ability to have tenacity and push through. And that's what this concept is, this keynote is about. It's about how do we develop grit? What is grit? I've even got a diagnostic for it, so you can actually measure the grit of your team before the presentation, and we can talk about it. And in the presentation, what I talk about is the key things that drive grit is mental toughness, having a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset, leveraging your strengths, tapping into meaning, and finally, having a focus on achievement. They're the 5 key things that drive grit, and that's what we talk about in this keynote. To tell you the truth, one of the reasons why it's so successful is just because of the name. I run this program in organizations, and what they say is people take this program up and engage in it because it's called grit. It's not called be an effective leader or how to transform your team. It has cool language to it, and people go, grit, I want grit. And they aspire to do it, and we get the buy-in because of it. And one of the most successful things about this keynote is people love the concept. The material in it is fun, it's interesting. I talk about athletes, I talk about surgeons, I talk about the research I've done, and people really engage with it. So that's my concept and keynote called Grit. It's a fantastic presentation, and if you want any more information, just contact me about Grit.